Atalanta, and this is Everyday Witchcraft. Here on Everyday Witchcraft, we explore everything from witchcraft to the occult to the paranormal and the spiritual. Every week we have special guests that have expertise in the subject matter at hand. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Witchcraft. Tonight's episode is extra special to me, and that is all about bone divination. The three guests that I have on tonight are Brandy McGee, also known as Bone Throwin, Meave Wilders, also from Bell Book and Bone, and Ashley Crowder. These three guests have excelled on their bone divination journey, so no further ado, let's welcome Brandy, Meave, and Ashley. Welcome to another episode of Everyday Witchcraft. Tonight's episode is extremely special to me. This is all about throwing bones divination, and we have three of my favorite people on here that are going to kind of give a little bit of their expertise, how they got into it, what influences them, maybe what tradition they throw. So we've got Meave Wilders, we've also got Brandy the Bone Witch, and we have Ashley Crowder, and each of them have like a distinctive niche in the throwing bones community. So let's kind of start off. I'm going to have Meave first kind of introduce yourself and just say a little bit of how you got into it.
So hi, my name is Meave Wilders. I got into bone throwing. I did it a lot as a child and took care of the farmers in my community with my great grandmother. We took care of all of their prognostication needs, whereas how many to breed, buy, butcher, those kinds of things. But then I ran into Atalanta and we got to be in the same cabin. So I took all of her classes and I was like, this is very similar. And then it was just a fun thing. We're both terrified of spiders and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I've just got to kind of interject here. Okay, I don't think I've told you this, but this place that I live right now is infested with brown recluse spiders. Now, wait a minute. When I say this, okay, I'm talking about infested. I trap them under bowls and cups, and because I don't want to kill anything, but at the same time, if it dies, it's not my problem. It should have been in my apartment. So I get my neighbors to come over and rescue me from the bodies. And my neighbor came over with her daughter-in-law, and she picked up the bowls and the cups, which there was like 14 of them. And then they started going around with a flashlight collecting more spiders. We got above 20 and shut it down. I was like, but they collected all in the sticky, it was so bad. But yeah, so Meave and I, the first time we actually met, yeah, and it was at Cauldron, right? Wasn't that Cauldron?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And we came unglued when it comes to spiders. So yes, when I get rid of another brown recluse, and I've got them in little jars now too. I was trying to desensitize myself from them.
No,
not happening. So
no.
Okay, so thank you so much, Brandy. You're next. Would you like to kind of introduce yourself, talk about how you got into it?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Bone Throwin, also known as Brandy, or most people just call me B, for short. As a kid, when we were growing up, we played outside. We went to the creek. We got and swam in rivers and all this stuff. So I was always the weird kid that collected, I would collect rocks and stuff, but also bones and jawbones. And like I said, I think we talked about in one of your last show that I actually have the turtle shell from a pet that my dad had caught for me, And it's funny that my mom, she was like, why are you keeping all these things? And I was like, do you keep our baby teeth? Dude, she got shut down so quick. My mom started laughing. She was like, okay, I understand, it's sentimental to you. And I said, yeah, it's sentimental to me. And so as I got older and older, I started getting into tarot cards and all this other stuff. But I still had this collection of bones, and it wasn't a giant collection, obviously, but it was a personal collection. And then I came across your book, and then I was like, oh my God, this all makes sense to me because I have Muskogee Creek blood in me. And so I work with my ancestors, and it all clicked then. And I was just like, immediately connected with my ancestors and immediately was able to see exactly what I needed to see. It was like I was just building myself over time to do this. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's just crazy. So yeah, it's awesome. It's the
Yeah,
best thing ever.
I remember spending a lot of time like going back and forth on the phone with you, and you're like, I know this is my thing. I know this is my jam. I know this is what, and then you kind of fell right into it and sort of created your own thing. And maybe I'm guessing spoke with your ancestors and maybe they influenced you some. But yeah, it just sort of fell into place for you, and I remember the story about the turtle shell because that cracked me up on the very
Yeah.
I think you were like the first or second episode that I did Everyday Witchcraft. I can't remember. You were one of the first two. And yeah, you talked about the little turtle shell. It was cute. So okay. All right, Ashley. We have Ashley next. And Ashley actually I believe took a workshop. And so go ahead and introduce yourself.
I mean, I kind of played around with tarot, but it never really resonated with me. I think my favorite deck was always a Disney deck because I actually realized I was talking more about the characters than I was the meaning of the card itself when I was reading them. And we were actually looking for a Harry Potter convention, and Cauldron Fest had just kind of like themed their event around Harry Potter and the houses. And that is the only reason why I happened to come across. And I was like, wow, I didn't know pagans ever got together and did things like this. And I was like, this is really cool. We have to go check it out. And then I took one of your workshops, and I was like, that first day I walked out, I was like, this is it. This is what I want to do. And all my friends are standing there looking at me like, this is a 3-day class. You just walked in on the first day. And I was like, nope, I felt it. Like this is what I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And
feel that.
Ashley actually helped me with this last Cauldron Fest, and I want to say thank you again for that. But yeah, so there's so many different ways that you could be introduced to the bones. I had the guy who taught me tarot back in like 95 introduced me to the bones, and then it was like some years later I went to a festival and was reintroduced to him, and then of course went back to Lauren who originally introduced me to him. And maybe I just wasn't ready at the time for whatever reason. It wasn't that I didn't like it, I loved it, but I was like, okay, right, I had things going on in my life. So it's like I needed to kind of get through all of that. And then it just sort of exploded. And yeah, so it's my preferred choice of divination. Okay, so we have 4 different ways that we've kind of been introduced to it. Me with Lauren and his family. Okay, Brandy, it just kind of came to her with her heritage. Maeve, as she went through the classes, of course, it was at Cauldron Fest too, but she went through all the classes and learned like the actual tradition plus the other throws and created her own. And then Ashley with the workshop. So let me just kind of say real quick. So with the actual classes and with the workshop, what I teach is the traditional cluster throw that I was taught, that's been passed down through generations of a family who taught, their Lauren who taught me, and now I'm passing it down now. Okay, but and whenever like whenever you get certified or whatever through my classes, you are getting certified on that particular tradition. And then we also move into other things as well, like other types of throws, and then creating your own throws. So Brandy, how did you go about creating your own, like your own thing, your own throw, your own, and do you do multiple throws of different ways?
Well, sometimes it just depends on. First thing when I throw, I noticed that some people spread out the bones, and that's totally cool because everybody has their way of doing it. I read them exactly as they fall, and then I start from the very center, and whatever the center, that's what's happening right now. And then as it goes out, as I say, if it falls off the mat, that's your future, what's going to be happening out there. Because, you know, I use a circle, the
Mhm.
medicine wheel, if you will. That's how I describe it. And so you could read it in quadrants, or I read it as the present going to the future out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I always use, I know some people like to tap into other people's ancestors, but like I had so much generational trauma with my ancestors that I had to heal before I could do this, that I can't trust other people's ancestors, but I know I can trust mine. So that's who I connect with when I throw the bones. I think that might be a little bit different than other people. You know, I use my ancestors and they speak to me, you know.
Right. I don't think there's any wrong way though. I mean, I've heard of
No, there's
people
no
just
wrong way.
right, right. And I've heard people just using their own ancestors 100%. The way I was taught is obviously you connect your own ancestors first, and then later on you connect to theirs. They get together and have a party. Everything's good. But not all traditions are that way, you know? I mean, you know, and sometimes you may get a whisper saying, no, don't connect to those
Uh,
ancestors. So, you know,
mhm.
that does happen too. That happens too. When you say you use kind of the medicine wheel, is it like the sun cross, or is it like a double, like a circle with an? I'm just curious because I'm going to put a
Yeah,
picture of
it's
some of
like
them.
a, here, actually, I think I got one right
Okay,
here
yeah,
that I drew on the back of, was, you
yeah,
see,
okay, yeah.
but this, I
That's
use this
actually,
part, you know what I mean? But I have it like inside my brain,
I got you. Okay,
if that
yeah.
makes
Look,
any
I'm gonna
sense.
move to the side. See, there's you can't
Yes,
really
yeah.
tell, but there's the
I try
little.
to read them how you do it. I mean, your book really, really, really led me, you know, but
Oh, thank you.
and it really did.
Well, it's there to kind of like give ideas and inspire, even if you don't throw the tradition, the actual tradition that's taught in it, and you create your own.
Mm,
But that's what it's all about. You know,
right.
you gotta create your own, you know, and but I mean when you do, like if you're sitting down, and I think this is important too. And maybe Ashley, I want to ask y'all the same question I asked her, but I think it's important, like when somebody sits down or you're talking to somebody and they say, "Oh, what tradition do you throw?" If you say, "I throw such and such tradition that was taught to me by such and such," it's important that you throw with the integrity of what you've been taught without deviating. Okay, no
Absolutely.
deviation. Right, but you can say something to the effect of, I've been inspired by this tradition, but I've kind of created my own thing. That's perfectly fine. You just kind of want to keep it, you want to keep it respectful for the ancestors who passed down that information. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, so Maeve,
absolutely.
talk about yours a little bit. Like what, because I know you've kind of changed up your style too.
I have. So I talked to my ancestors, and unfortunately, they let me feel things, or they have me feel things. I have felt a cardiac dissection and managed to get somebody to the hospital in time, and that was brutal because now I know what a heart attack feels like without having
Oh,
ever had one.
wow.
Hmm,
Wow.
So
yeah.
just the most random things I feel, in addition to like hearing or seeing or smelling. They just have me smell them, and they'll show me pictures. The ones that don't want to talk will just show me pictures. And I have to ask, I'm like, why are they showing me a field full of tulips? And it'll always mean something to the querent. They'll be like, oh, the last time we've been out of town, it was to go see the tulip festival. I'm like, who took you? Because that's who this is. Because I'm not good
Mhm.
enough to know who it is that's showing me or telling me. I have to kind of ask questions to figure out who it is. Um, but I always say a prayer and ask my ancestors to please, please join me, cover me, and just protect me. Because
Mhm.
you're right, you never know who's going to show up and what their intents are. But I've not necessarily had any issues I couldn't control or handle at an event, other than being really tired at the end of the day.
Yeah.
See,
So,
Yeah.
that's why I haven't got to do festivals yet, because I'm afraid that after like this fifth or sixth bone throw, like I'm going to be ready to go take a nap. You know what I mean?
gotta
No,
eat.
you'll
Because
be
it's
fine.
very, very powerful.
It is very, it's exhausting, but like at oddities, the most I've ever done, I usually average about 20 readings in a row at oddities. So give or take 19, 21, whatever. The most I
Yeah.
ever did was 23 because there's only so many you can do in that slot period. I'm gonna tell you something. I was like, I go to the bathroom and I wash my hands and let all the excess energy go down into the sink. And then by the end of the time, like you get almost high off of it. And then
Yeah.
once you allow yourself to kind of crash, like you got to be careful because you do need to take breaks. You have to take breaks. My assistant's always like, you got to take a break. But if you take too long of a break, you're out. You're
out.
like, I'm done. But you kind of get hyper off of it. But at the end, out. But you could do it for sure. I mean,
Yeah, you can.
yeah, it's
I
just
would
you gotta
love
kind of take
to.
care of yourself. Well, Ashley, what about you? I know you have a different style of throwing because you actually threw for me at Cauldron.
I'm kind of a storyteller, I think, like especially like relating people back to the animal when they fall like near a certain bone. I mean, I think my biggest problem, I was trying to do things like literally by your book. Like I went through and was trying to find the exact same pieces, and I kind of had to learn over time that I had to make this my own or it wasn't going to work. I was really scared. I didn't know how to connect with my ancestors. Like, and finally I got to a point that where I can't say that I hear them so much as like, I just trust and feel them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just one of those that like, I'm going to say this and it may not make any sense to me, but that person sitting across from me is like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I trusted in what they told me to say. Like I was that speaker box for them. And like, I learned over time that I just trust it and go now. Like in the beginning, I couldn't do that, but now I can do that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, and it is. I call it getting the feels because I don't know what else to call it. But it's almost like I hear
Yeah.
them, but they're like back here somewhere. But it's not like I'm
Mhm.
hearing them here. I'm hearing them back here.
Yeah.
You know.
Yes, my grandmother is always da 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 da. I mean, she even
Yes.
smokes in the house, and I'm like, Grandma, you know that you cannot smoke in the house. I will smell cigarettes, and we don't smoke cigarettes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Grandma, take it outside, honey,
Take it outside.
and it
Oh
goes
my gosh,
away.
that's hilarious. I love
Yeah,
that. What's the
I'm like,
craziest
and
thing?
it's fine. Just take it outside.
Just take it outside. What's the craziest thing that's ever happened to you with the ancestors? Would it be the smoking thing or something else happened?
Okay, now recently, I felt that my uncle, who was one of those uncles that wasn't a great one, he was one of those uncles. I'm pretty sure that he passed because I'm almost 100% sure that he was incarcerated. We don't know anything about him. He dropped off the face. Um, so one day, my lavender flowers fell, my cornflowers fell, my lotus blossoms fell. My mom calls me. She tells me all these weird things are happening at the house. She was like, I deadbolt the lock, and this is my mom's brother. I deadbolt the lock. She's like, and the thing won't undeadbolt, so I can't shut the door. And then she's like, we go to get in the car, and the battery's completely dead. And so I said, Mom, okay, I know this sounds nuts, but I think that Larry has passed. And I did a cord cut with him because I was like, I do not want that energy here. You are not here. You are not invited here. You're not going to be a part of this. And so I did a cord cut with me and him. I didn't think that he'd go after my mom, but he did. So I had to take care of that too. So yeah, when they say they creep in, they really do. And he really showed up and showed out when he came.
Oh,
Like it
wow.
was
That's almost kind
crazy.
of
It
scary.
all happened in one day. It was like
Yeah.
the blue flowers. I was like, I'm not trying to talk to you. No.
That's so funny. We recently had a friend pass, Cheryl Cotton. We love her so much. And
Sorry.
so I was out there and I was blessed to be able to be out there with her. And there was a small handful of us. And I was joking with her and I told her the day I got out there, I said, look, I know when you pass, you're going to be busy and everything, and you're going to be excited and you're not going to be sick anymore, but you need to come say something to me. You need to come make me know that you're there. Just come do something and let me know everything's cool and whatnot. So the day she passed, and then she also blessed a couple of pieces of bone that we kind of gave out and stuff like that, because she said, better put a piece in there for me, which we did.
Nice.
So the day that she passed, like later in the day, I was walking out the door and I felt, and with spider webs, that's kind of like a hint that spirit is around you. Felt all these spider webs, and I was like, "Oh, is that you?" And then when I went outside, I thought, "Well, maybe it was a spider. I'm just not sure." Well, that night we danced in white under the full moon, and right before everybody else got out there, I was right in the middle. There were no trees, and spider webs went all over me. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love you."
That
She
is
was
so cool.
yeah, and then a container of basil shot out of the cupboard at our friend Margaret, who is a kitchen witch, and she was in there cooking, and a thing of basil shot out at her. So yeah, she was around.
Wow.
It's
That's
pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah. What about you, Maeve? So, well, let's talk about spirits for just a second. Have you had anything weird happen to you, like at your ancestral altar, or just like something kind of crazy happen with your ancestor?
My great grandma, I do Reiki at my house, and all of my Reiki clients have seen her. They're like, "Who's that lady?" And I was like, "So you don't really see her? It's okay. It's just my great grandma." And they're like, "What? Wait,
I love it.
Yeah,
no."
that's so cool.
So, but yeah, I see spirits and I are close. When you're, I mean, my mom passed away when I was 15, and I grew up in the senior citizen center. So all of my best friends passed away early.
Oh,
You have
I'm
a
so
lot of
sorry.
ancestors.
I
Yeah.
do. I was truly blessed with some of the most amazing beings in the whole world helping to raise me, and to not be afraid of death. Like these
Yeah.
people went out blazing. So I was really taught early not to fear death, to prepare for it, to understand it, that it's a blessing. So going into hospice nursing was not a big deal. You know, it was a normal, natural hop for me. And then when I wasn't able to be a nurse anymore, to go into doing death doula work was a normal hop for me. It was
I was just
something
going to
my
mention that. I was just going to
yeah, it was
mention that
something.
because I'm so excited that you do that. I think that's beautiful.
Well, we did death doula work, my great grandma and I, before. When I was little, she took me with her. If I Same with the farmers, we would go do all the farm work, and then we would do the garden work, and then we would do our death doula rounds, and then we would do, so it was just something that I grew up with. I understood that death wasn't bad, it was just part of life.
Part of life.
And so
Exactly. It's a
what
transition.
it is, I just couldn't do Cheryl's. I was
I
supposed to
know.
be, I just couldn't. She
I
died like my
know.
mom did, and it was too close.
Yeah, I know.
So
I know. But she still loves you. So
I know.
she's
She
out
told
there
me.
looking. Yeah,
She
she's out
called
there
me.
looking.
She
Oh,
called
she
me the
did.
week
Oh,
before she passed, and she said, "Come here." And my husband
oh,
put me in the car and brought me there. So I was
oh,
like, "Okay, I'm here. What
oh.
now?"
Yeah, she's amazing. She was, all right, got to tell a funny story real quick. So the day before she passed, she gets up out of her wheelchair. She's in the kitchen and she's cooking. And I'm like, I go in there, I'm like, "What are you
Yep.
doing, Michelle?" She said, "I'm making baked beans." I said, "Okay, why?" And she said, "Well, people are going to be hungry tomorrow and they need to eat, and I'm not going to be here to make them anything." I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, you do you."
I mean, they know.
Yeah.
They really do
Mhm.
know.
Yeah,
Oh, she
yeah.
knew, because when she called me to come here, it was to tell me the day she was going to die.
Yeah, she knew the exact day.
Wow.
She knew like almost the exact time. It was a full moon. The color
Mhm.
of the day, which she used to do all the time, was the color white. And we had already decided that we were going to wear white. Sorry about that. My phone's on Do Not Disturb. We already decided that we were going to wear white and dance under the full moon. And sure enough, the color of the day was white. And yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, she's
I
she's
like how y'all celebrated that. That's cool.
yeah, we really, I mean, it was, and like Maeve has grown up with that and not being afraid of death. See, I didn't grow up that way. I mean, it wasn't that I was afraid of death. It was just not treated the way that it was cold. You know what I mean? Like nobody meant for it to be cold. Nobody meant for it
Yeah.
to be cold. But like when my sister was killed, I wanted to do her hair and makeup, and nobody would let me do it. And I was like, I'm the only one that's ever done her hair and makeup, other than her doing her makeup. So they wouldn't let me do it because whatever, whatever. And I thought, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Ashley, what about you? Do you have anything weird that's happened like with your ancestors?
I don't know if it's considered weird or not. Ever since I was a little girl, anytime we'd ever go to like somebody like when they were getting buried in the ground or something, I'd always be like, I would tell them ever since I was a little kid that I would never come back here again, that this would be the last time. And they'd always get all mad at me. No, we have to come visit. Like, your grandfather was a war memorial. Like, we have to come back on Memorial Day. Like, we have to. And I was like, no, because that's not him. He's gone. Like, that's not where he is. And I would always say that when I was a little girl. And like, now that I'm older, even like when my mother passed away a couple of years ago, I was like, I looked at my family and I said I wanted to stay there till the end because this is the last time I will ever stand at her gravestone. Because I was like, this isn't where she is. Like, that's not where she is.
Right.
And it's like, the more I kind of learned about this and like looking at the ancestors, it's like, okay, I kind of see where I was as a little girl. Like, that's not them. That's not them in the ground. Like, that's just their bones and stuff in the ground. Like, they're with you. They're going around. And that like makes much more sense to me now.
Yeah, their spirits around you and stuff. What's y'all's biggest challenge? Like, do you have any challenges connecting? I know that, we've talked about, well, yeah, it's much easier now, but what was like the biggest challenge? What kind of advice would you give somebody who's never worked with ancestors before?
Don't think you're crazy.
Yeah. There you go. That's legit.
Yeah, don't think you're crazy. Just relax.
Just relax and honor them. You don't have to have a big shrine or anything like that. And a lot of people, that's what they want to do. They want to make this big giant shrine. And I was actually talking to a girl recently, and she's never worked with her ancestors. She's wanting to build a relationship with them. And she asked, like, she's got, different books and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, the thing is that because she's eclectic, and I think this is important too, like when you're eclectic, unless it's like a particular religion or faith or, like for example, in voodoo, you're not allowed to work with your ancestors unless you're told you're allowed to work with them. And there's certain things that you do, certain ways to do it, certain rituals and stuff like that. But there's other faiths that are the same way. However, the beauty about being eclectic and also about like kind of, not having like this particular religion of where I'm throwing bones is you can kind of work with all these different things. It's kind of like working spells. You read a spell, you make it your own, and then you do it. So she asked me in the book that she read, you were supposed to list like all of your ancestors, and she had like over 600 names. And I was like, oh my gosh, no. I said, what you do? I said, this is just, it depends on how you want to approach it. If you're going to a family reunion and there's 600 people there, you can go and introduce yourself to everybody and kind of say, hi, and meet everybody and be a social butterfly. Or you can go and kind of say hi and sit down with one family member and talk to them, and then another family member and talk to them. It's your choice. You could do it either way because there's no way that's wrong, so she chose to be the social butterfly, which is her personality for sure, which is cute. I mean, because but you can do it any way you want to. What are your thoughts about that? About like, if somebody says, okay, I want to connect with all these ancestors, or, do you think it should just be one-on-one or both?
Like I said earlier, when I had to do that cord cut, yeah, I feel like I have to ask if, who's here and who's not. I really do, because it's a trust issue with me. Because I want to make sure the information that I'm getting is true. And I know that my grandmother is true. And, sometimes if I do have a hard time connecting, I'll knock 3 times on the table and ring my bell. That kind of helps clear out a little bit too. I don't know if anybody's tried that, to kind of call them in, you know. I always knock 3 times on the table to call them in, and then ring a bell, and of course meditate, and but yeah, I guess I'm kind of extra when it comes to working with my ancestors, because
I love it.
I am a little bit picky, so.
No,
and people are like, I see this dark entity behind you, and I'm like, yeah, that's my grandpa. Like, he's straight up native, like he's not going to show his face. He's just not. But he will show up his darkness, but he's not dark,
Right,
he's awesome.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's neat that you kind of have like a little system, and which ones you're connecting to. I always, I know I connect to my sister a lot, but when I'm connecting to like other people, I've had people sit down and say, can you connect to such and such? Or can you connect to such and such? And I'm like, I don't pick and choose who comes, but I can explain to you what they're saying, and then maybe you can figure out who it is, you know? And of course, people really want you to connect with particular people. You know what I mean? Like maybe their spouse or their child. I had somebody sit down that, wanted me to connect to their child. And I was just like, I mean, my heart was breaking. And unfortunately, we did not get to connect to that child. But we did get to connect to other ancestors, and she was very comforted, and and she was okay. But I mean, that just happens that way, you really can't pick and choose who's going to be around you. What have y'all been doing? Like, where has your bone throwing taken you? Who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first with so I've made I used to do yes and no. I'm really active on social media with my bones. And so I would do live yes and no questions. And that's awesome. But now I've created something different. I've made a little bowl. I've got a little tiny bowl of bones. Now I can actually give people clarity on these live throws and things like that, and not use the yes and no bones. Because I mean, they're great, or the cowrie shells or whatever it is you like to use to answer yes and no questions, but they're so open-ended, and so now I've gone to lives controlled, like sub lives, to where and so it's not thousands of people, now it's controlled, and I have more time and I can focus. And so it's really helped help people connect more to the bones than just asking a yes or no question.
Yeah, it's more in depth. And okay, side note, all right, Randy's being very modest. She is like all over the social media. And a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do social media. Woo! So I got all the different things, and I'm like, Randy, I don't know what I'm doing. She's like, oh, and I said, no, I'm not consistent. So I'm like, oh, I'm so excited for 2 weeks, and then I'm like, nope, not doing it. But yeah, she's all over social media. She's a huge following, and also does like magic too. You do magic. It's not just bones. You do magic too.
I did a cord cut at the creek this morning. It shattered the plate, and the plate shot off into the creek. And I was like, well, got cleanse that, didn't it? It was awesome. It's on my TikTok if I want to watch it. It's so cool.
Yeah, I haven't been on TikTok in so long, but I'm gonna probably go on it tonight now just to check it out.
I tagged you in the video
on
last
TikTok.
You do what?
I tagged you in the video last night talking about this.
Oh, did you really?
How we're
okay, so
this.
I'm gonna go on there. I'm gonna check out the did you say that it broke? Like the plate broke on the cord cutting?
Yeah, and like shot off the rock into the water. It was great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go in there and check it out. See, my thing is too, I get on TikTok and then I'm like, ooh, and then 2 hours later I'm still playing on it. Hadn't posted anything on it. I'm just playing. I TikTok stalk you. I'm like, oh, what's Brandy doing? Love.
I know. I love it. Thank you.
Okay, babe, what have you been up to? I know one thing, and I'm so excited that you're going to share this, babe.
So I have been reading for spirits and houses, like haunted houses.
Cool.
So seeing how we can help them get unhaunted. So I've been doing it for a TV show called The Other's Side. They're going to film here in Nashville in November. I'm super excited.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm
that's
so excited.
Super awesome. Oh my God.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, I'm
everybody wants to talk.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I bet it just kind of drives you crazy. I am super excited about that. And there's like a little, it's kind of down on my, because I haven't really been on Facebook, but I've got like a little video of her doing it. I'm so excited. You do festivals though too. Like you and I've got something coming up together, and next year we were kind of talking about maybe doing a class together.
Let's do it.
I say we do it. Yeah, for sure. Let's just tear it up. So
yeah.
But Ashley, what have you been doing? Like, where has your journey taken you?
I have literally been all over the map. I have done reptile conventions. I have done horror cons. I've done comic book conventions, anime conventions. Like, I have actually spread myself out in some of the weirder conventions, I guess you would think of. Like I do some metaphysical events and everything, but I'm like, I also put some of the passions and stuff that I have, like my friends and I love to dress up in anime and cosplay, and I'm like, why not bring part of my world into that world and join them together? So I am all over the map when I book different festivals and stuff.
Do you throw
That's
bones like at Comic Cons and stuff?
I was just at Nashville Comic Con last weekend,
Dude,
and
that's
then 2 weeks
awesome.
ago I was at Metrotham, which is an anime con. So I was like, you know, and I have not had anybody like negative come up to me and be upset about it. They're like, this is cool. I didn't know this existed. And it's like, great. I'm glad I could at least introduce you to it.
yeah,
Mhm.
spread the word.
That's amazing.
You're
Spread
an
the
adorable
word.
Ariel.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say spread the word on all of it. And reach those different markets that are, that are different. And I'm thinking about like when if I ever get it out, the next book, I've just kind of put it's gonna come out when it needs to. It's supposed to be out 2 years ago, but there's been one thing after the next. So it'll come out when it's supposed to. But anyway, when it does come out and I start traveling again, I haven't decided which turn I'm gonna take it, but I am gonna kind of try to stay a little bit more local. And I think I'm going to hit like some different places, but just like in Atlanta and Charlotte, kind of go back and forth with that. Hadn't decided yet, but like my journey's taken me like in whenever the first book came out, I was all over the place. Hell, I was doing, oh my gosh, I think I was home 4 days a month, maybe exhausting myself, but I loved it. It was so much fun, and traveling and stuff like that. But in my personal life, though, it's taken me on quite a journey too, because it has shown me, like I've actually gotten closer to my mother's side of the family, where before I was sort of distant, not distant, not distant with all of them, cousins stuff, but kind of, like really didn't talk to them that much. And it's actually brought me closer. I've had a lot of them pass in the last couple of years on my mom's side, but that has brought me closer to the living ones. What is your favorite throw? We don't have a whole lot of time left, but we got a few minutes, and I kind of want to cover like a few more. I want everybody to sort of share their favorite throw, or do you have a standard throw, or if somebody does it vary when somebody sits down? Do you kind of just go with the flow? What do you do with yours?
Well, with mine, I just give them a general overall reading of what I can see. Like if
Okay.
things fall, if their boundaries are messed up, if they need to connect with their ancestors, if they need to talk with spirit, if they need to do more meditation, or if they're going through a spiritual transformation, and that's why there's so many changes happening. And so it's more of a, I guess you could say, a spiritual read about your spiritual path and, being able, but, I mean, there's also, money and love and relationships and all that stuff in there too. But it's really more focused on helping people find healing and find their own spiritual path.
And it's kind of
That's
like,
what I try to do.
yeah, from what I've seen, like yours is kind of an all-encompassing whatever they want to say at that particular time. For example, they may want to talk about love, but they may not. They may want to talk about money, but they may not. They kind of want to give you
Right.
advice on spirituality. That's kind of what I've seen, like your work predominantly be composed of, which is amazing. What if somebody comes to you with a question? Are you able to always hit that question, or is it kind of like, well, they really don't want to talk about it right now. We're gonna have to talk about this instead.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times where somebody asks me about, their love life, and then the love relationship will just, I'll throw and it'll just fall off the table. And I'm just like,
Mm.
well, we're not going to be able to talk about that. Either that or it's on the floor because it needs to be worked on, you know?
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it just depends on, I can obviously, if somebody's looking for a new job, I can tell if a new job's coming or money or something like that. I was, when she was saying that she sees pictures in her head, that's how I get it too from my
Oh, wow.
grandmother. I hear her in my head, but she also sends me pictures,
Oh,
and
that's
she'll tell
cool.
me like months and dates sometimes. Um, Only sometimes though. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's sometimes when I really can't connect to what that question is. but
Mhm.
I can connect them to maybe the ancestor that can help them in that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
The
yeah.
fraternal or maternal side, you know.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, I mean, if somebody sits down with a question, even if they sit down with a question, the very first thing I do, no matter what, usually, usually it's like there's a 15 to 20-minute time limit. And the only time I really watch the time is if I'm at an event, you kind of have to. But the first thing I do is a general throw to see where that comes up in their life first. And even if it's just for a minute, just to see where they're at. And then I go into the question. And it just depends on what the question is, on what type of throw I do. I sort of morph the throw into what is needed at the time, you know. What about
Makes
May? What
sense.
about
Yeah.
with you? Are you able to just sit down, connect, answer all the questions? What is your go-to throw?
Me?
Uh-huh.
Oh, like I do that like once a show, don't I? I'm like paying
It's
attention.
okay. I do it all the time. So
I'm hard of hearing. I've had brain surgery. Everything's not all right up there.
oh,
Um,
you're perfect up there.
Whatever,
So
dude.
um, I try to answer every single question, but I'm also routinely in trouble for going over time. I have stand timers, alarms, people that look at me and like with a
Apple.
SWAT and they're threatening me. It's horrible.
Mhm. Dancing
But
behind you going.
I I have people come and sit down in front of me that are horribly sunburnt because they stood in the sun, and I'm like, I'm
Oh
so
my
sorry.
goodness.
Like, you stood in the line. Oh my God, how long were you there? Why are you so sunburnt? So yeah. But I try to answer every single question, even if I'm talking so fast, my mouth is sticking together.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'll
Oh,
pull
I
I
out
don't
my
talk
ever hear
tarot
the
fast.
words
cards.
coming out of my mouth ever until after the throw. Yep,
I
I have
You
will.
know
no
what,
idea what I'm
too?
saying.
Do y'all remember, like, okay, so unless it's something really out there, like just out there. I don't remember the information like 15 minutes after. It's gone. I'm like, look,
Mm,
they were speaking through me. I don't know what to tell you. You should have recorded it. I encourage you to record it. I mean, do y'all remember like your readings? Like I said,
No.
there's certain moments, but I don't remember.
Absolutely not. No.
Nope.
I've had people who have come back to my table to ask me a question, and I look at them and have to be honest. Like, I honestly don't remember what we talked about. Like, I may be able to pull bits and pieces from some of my stuff that I've said, but I cannot quote everything that we talked about during whatever we had to say. You heard it. I can't say I sat there and heard what I said.
Yeah, yeah, because
I
I
feel that.
honestly
Yep.
don't. I remember little situations, I remember like certain situations that just stick out. But as far as the reading itself, I'm like, I don't know. Unless it's like, okay, so like regular clients, I have one client that I read for at least once a week. And so I kind of, I remember a lot of her stuff, but I don't remember details of it. She records it all the time, so it's perfect. Because then
Mhm.
even during, like, we'll do as many throws as possible within the allotted time, and she'll be like, okay, da 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 da. I'm like, I have no idea. You're gonna have to press rewind. I don't know, but I mean, I remember the different subjects that she wants to touch on. And I have regular clients that I remember the subjects, I remember certain situations,
Yeah.
but I don't remember the advice or, yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's like it goes through you and then it just fades away. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That's for sure.
What is what is y'all's most amazing reading? Like, I'll give my example, and I know y'all probably heard this about the boy that was at oddities, but what is like your funniest or most memorable throw, or something that hit you real hard, or that just amazed you?
I
Okay. I did a throw for somebody that did they have had the it was the very first time. It's the piece you gave me, Atalanta, that little piece of pottery. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that stands, because it's so old, that stands for, our lives that we previously lived. And
Oh,
this person had the relationship piece on top of that. So they're with the same person every single life they've lived.
oh
Like, they
wow.
find that same person and I was just like, Dude,
That's
that's so
cool.
cute. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just like, that is the most adorable thing ever. And I was tripping
Yeah.
out so hard over it. And they get a kick out of me because I trip a lot on these people's throats.
Me
Like I
too.
really do.
I get
And
so
I'm like,
excited
oh,
from
this is
death.
so good,
Y'all
you
might have
know.
heard this story, and I'm gonna try to not tell it as long as what I normally do. But I was at an oddities and I can't remember which one it was, but you get people boom, boom, boom sitting down in your chair, and this little blonde boy with blue eyes, and he's all preppy dressed and real sweet, real young, with a cute little girl. They look like Barbie and Ken. And he sits down on my table. And so whenever I do a traditional throw, there's a certain order that I go in, and usually it's like, the self piece, and then the bracelet, the Herkimer, the starter piece, blah blah blah. But when I threw it, I looked at it and I looked at him, and in the bracelet, which is like stuff's really important if it's in there, in the bracelet was a stingray barb, which means moving in the right direction, and the legal bone, and it was sticking through the legal bone. So the first thing I did is I looked down and I was like, I said, "Are you dealing with anything legal?" And he goes, "Please tell me I'm not going back to prison. Please tell me I'm not going back to prison. Please tell me I'm not going back. Oh my gosh, please tell me." And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on a minute." He said, "I just got out of prison about 2 weeks ago." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." I said, "No, you're fine. If you just continue to do what you're doing, moving in the right direction. It's really important though that you stay on track." He goes, I sat down because I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a joke, but oh my gosh, I can't believe he ended up sending a couple clients to me. It was hilarious. But yeah, I would have never guessed. Yeah, please tell me I'm not going back to prison.
That would have tripped me out so hard. I'd have been like, what?
I
What
know,
in the
right?
world?
I know. And I was like,
Wow.
when he first started, I mean, he was genuinely freaking out. And I was like, "No, you're fine. You're fine." And then I had to show him. He's like, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yes, listen." And I explained to him about the bracelet. I explained what the stingray barb was. And I explained about it went right through the chicken bone. And I was like, "Listen, this is literally what this means." And he's like, "Okay, okay." And do you know that boy actually he contacted me one time afterwards, because I told him, I said, he goes, "I'm going to tell my friends about you." And he did. He got me a couple of readings, video chat readings. And then he emailed me like a couple of months down the road and said he was doing well. And that was really cool that he was. So
Nice.
yeah. What about you, Ashley or Meg? Do you have any kind of crazy story you want to share?
I had a 15-year-old girl sit at my booth, and I always have like an extra chair if somebody, like, if they have somebody they want to sit down and wait on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I started reading to her, and I was talking about a little girl, and she's like, "What? That doesn't make any sense." And I was like, "Well, it's talking about a daughter." And then I suddenly looked at the mother, who kind of wasn't paying attention, and I was like, "Am I accidentally pulling on you?" And then we started talking, and she's like, "That sounds like my son." And all of a sudden the daughter's like, "Oh." And she reaches into her shirt and pulls out a vial of his ashes. And
Oh.
I start talking about how he had passed away, and the wife had taken the daughter, and they were fighting to get custody. And we were talking about the daughter and how they kind of needed to fight harder and stuff. And it was very, I didn't know that I could do something like that until I sat there and did it. So after that, I've made it where I always ask, like, I put my chair farther away to make sure I'm pulling on the right person, to make sure, because like I kept looking, and I was like, I felt like I was looking at all this stuff right. And then she just kept going, "No, no, that doesn't make any sense. That's not me. That's not me." It wasn't her, it was her brother.
It was her brother. Wow. That's cool.
Wow. That
Yeah.
is
That
cool.
makes you want to get emotional and stuff. I
It
do. I
really
get
does.
emotional. Yeah, I get emotional real easy. I'll be
Yeah.
crying right along with them. I keep lots of
Yeah.
tissues in my little travel bag. I do. I
Yeah.
cry right along with them. It just, because it is. It's like you're feeling the emotion, and you're literally talking to their loved ones, and then they get touched and you get touched. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just beautiful. May,
Yeah.
what about you? Do you have like something you want to share that's just
Yeah, this one I actually did for free because I was sitting at my table and I had just finished a reading and I was fixing to take lunch. So I had put my little going to take a lunch, please sign the list, sign up, and people were scooted over signing the list. And this lady walked by and my ancestor said, "Read her." And there was no denying it. So I went and I was like, ma'am, I have to read your bones. And she did not speak English. And her daughter spoke English. but she said, I would have to translate and we were leaving. We've spent all our money. And I said, it doesn't matter. If I don't read for you, my ancestors won't leave me alone. So they came and sat
I've
down.
had that feeling.
They came and sat down. My husband was with me, luckily, because it was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and that was 2.5 hours away. And I cannot drive that far. So he went with me. He speaks Spanish. There was some Spanish from like Castilian, and that the daughter was not sure on, that he had to translate for her. These were their old ancestors, and they were telling the mom they knew what was going on at home, and it was time for her to get out. We damned her pride, and they understood family constraints and how families were supposed to be set up, but she was American now, and
Wow.
take care of it.
Wow, that's
For herself,
intense. I mean,
take
oh
care
my
of
God.
her family. And I was just like,
Dang.
we're really glad Brian was there. I was
Yeah.
glad that my customers were kind enough to realize I was just going to skip lunch and do this reading and just get to them immediately, and like nobody pitched a fit. It
Right.
worked out.
Like
Isn't that
that was definitely
amazing?
meant to happen.
I
Yeah.
love the way that happens. I love that. Do you guys find yourself doing it a lot? I gift readings a lot. I say a lot. Yeah, I do. I gift them a lot. Like if I feel somebody needs one, when I moved the last time, I had like the universe provided me. I had amazing help from my loved ones, but the universe also provided me with a lot of situations that were beautiful. So what I did was, and I told them, I said, I don't know what your faith is. I don't know if it's I don't want to, step on any toes, but I'd like to gift you a reading. If it was somebody that like touched me for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I was like, I'd like to gift you a reading. And I had a couple of them actually contact me, and it was really cool. And you know what's weird? They all, the ones that did contact me, all really needed a reading. But I find myself doing that anyway, like at some festivals and events and stuff like that. I don't like to watch the clock, but unfortunately, you kind of got to at some places. But do you find yourselves
Yeah.
gifting readings a lot? Is it like,
Yeah, mine definitely do. Yeah,
yeah, I think that's
they do.
beautiful. I think it's beautiful. Well, okay, so first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming on here. This is the first time I've done like 4 people on the show, 3 guests. So I'm super excited about this, of course, the throwing bones thing. And I would, I want to do another one where maybe we can kind of get into some technical things on it. But I sort of want to introduce, everybody to all of us together. And we all have different styles. We all have different methods. We've all learned differently, saying differently on this, been influenced by different things. And I just think it's all beautiful. And remember that the thing is being an individual, creating, making it your own. If you do learn a tradition, stick to that tradition, the integrity of it, but you can take it and morph it into whatever you want with, keeping the respect with that. But if you guys would like to say like a last little goodbye, and maybe you want to give a little information of where somebody can find you, I can put it up on the screen at the same time.
Well, everybody knows where you can find me at. I mean, I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. So, and it's just bone throwing, no G. I do sub lives on Monday and Fridays, and then on Wednesdays I do free lives. And I'm always posting spells and witch tips, and
You have
just trying to
Etsy
help
too.
people heal.
Right.
And
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
I do. I have an Etsy shop.
Yeah.
I don't know
You're
why I didn't
busy
think
girl.
about that, but yeah, I do have that too.
Yep. Now, is that under bone throwing too, or is that under something else?
It's under
Bone
bone
throwing?
throwing, yeah.
All right, cool,
Mhm.
cool. Well, we'll kind of put that up there so people,
cool.
okay. And Meave, what about you? Do you have do you want to kind of give some information also about your death doula services as well?
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can find everything under Bell Book and Bone. And I have TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Etsy, and then the TV show is The Other Side. We have the pilot out on Amazon Prime, and then we're going to film the first episode in November. So, and that should be on Amazon, I think, or maybe Hulu. Keep your eyes out. And you can find me in an upcoming episode of Ghost Adventure.
Ooh.
So keep your eyes out for that one too.
Awesome. Okay,
You
yeah,
know,
you'll
I
have to
would
keep us.
definitely will.
Absolutely. You'll have to keep us posted on all that.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
that's so cool. I love it.
You can find me, Ashley the Bone Witch, at Facebook and Instagram, and I have no idea how many shows. I have a lot listed on there.
Okay, and it's
But
all on
the
your
one thing
Facebook, right?
Yes.
All right, and we'll put that up there as well. Well, thank you so much for being on here. And like I said, I want to do it again. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we can get together and actually like maybe do some throws and stuff like that. Maybe teach a little bit. But I'm glad we all got to connect. And I want to thank you for coming on here. Blessed be.
Awesome.
Thank
Yeah.
you for having me.
Thanks.
That concludes another episode of Everyday Witchcraft. I want to thank all of you for tuning in. And I'd also like to thank Brandy, Maeve, and Ashley for joining me on this show. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Blessed be.